Hi everyone. This week we're going to talk about writing bad characters. This came about from something I saw in a forum, and the writer asked the question, I've got a misogynistic character. How can I make the audience not hate him? Well, that's okay if that's your aim, that you want to make this misogynist not hated by the audience. So we're going to call these bad characters. If your aim is to make sure that the bad character isn't hated, there is ways of doing that. You make their actions justifiable. You allow the audience to get to, if you've read the book that just came out recently, Tools Not Rules, there's the concept of a morally neutral position. You allow the audience to get to a morally neutral position on this person's behaviour. That's one way of doing it, but you don't have to do that. If the person is a hateable person, it is okay to hate people. If you look at like the Discovery Channel and the History Channel, look at the things that they have on their channels. It's not like Poodle Hour, it's Shark Week. And people find the whole man-killing deadly machine to be quite fascinating. So they'll have a week of stories about sharks, about the damage they do, how people survive shark attacks, everything about sharks. And not because sharks are fluffy, lovely little things to have. They could be quite hateful. People could really not like sharks, but they're fascinating. The other thing you'll find a lot of documentaries about, as Ricky Gervais says, I'll put a picture of Ricky up here, he said he stopped watching garbage TV and started watching the Discovery Channel and the History Channel, and now he knows a whole lot about sharks and Nazis. Same thing, they have a lot of documentaries about dictators and Nazis and Mussolini and Pol Pot and genocides, because not that we're all fascinated and we think it's really entertaining, it's because people have an interest. They try to understand these things. They want to learn. People say if we don't learn history, we're guaranteed to repeat it. But the average guy sitting at home can't stop a maniacal regime. But people find the bad side of humanity just as interesting as the good side of humanity. You don't have to make people likable. That was the other thing. That was a very old way of thinking of screenwriting, that, we'll only watch likable characters. And we've become more sophisticated in our viewing. When there was a limited viewing, there was the feature of the week. I had a local cinema where I grew up in Punchbowl, Bankstown area. There was one cinema, and they had the thing they'd be showing for the week. And once you'd seen it, you'd seen it. Not that I went to the cinema very much. We didn't have that sort of cash. But that was the one option you had. I can't remember whether they had different things during the day for mums to take kids to, like preschool aged kids. I don't think they did. I think they had the one feature for the week. And then on Thursdays, they'd change it. You'd get another feature for the next week. Thursday was the cut overnight. So we had limited stories. I can go turn on Netflix now and watch 500 films. I can kick my VPN over to America, England, Venezuela, anywhere in Europe, and then watch all their local films on Netflix. I could subscribe to ITV and pay the British TV tax and flop my VPN over to somewhere in the UK and watch all BBC, all the British movies, all the Irish movies, all those sorts of things. Game of Thrones was made in Croatia and Northern Ireland, so we had that aesthetic and that sort of feel. We're getting stories now from around the world. We're becoming more sophisticated in what we understand to be a character, that we don't have to have the good character. But the one thing we don't have to have the character which is likable. I always say, look at Breaking Bad. Walter White, towards the end, became a hateful person. And we got to see the repercussions of everything he was doing, how he destroyed people's lives. And we're hoping that those people get those lives back together. So you don't need a likable character. Joker, he's an unreliable narrator. Everything in that movie could have been in his head as far as we know. Once we saw that relationship he had with that woman was make-believe, the entire story could have been make-believe. Even the death of those guys on the train and the riots that started in the city, that could have all been a fantasy of a guy just sitting in Arkham asylum, and him killing the person at the end, the therapist at the end, could have been the first murder he ever done. We don't know. We don't know what's real and what's not real. But he is far from likable. At best, we can have empathy for him. We can pity him. It poses the question, would he have been that evil person if he hadn't got the support? Is it a nature over nurture? That's a very complex story, but he's not a likable person. They don't do the classical thing that they would have done in a 60s or 70s film and redeem him at the end. There would have been like the ex-boyfriend of that lady that he thought he was having a relationship come back to do harm to her and the kid, and then he takes that guy out. That would have been, people would have gone, oh, look, he saved the cat. He redeemed himself. I like him now. We don't need those things anymore. What we do need is emotion. Even when people say, oh, people are going to hate this character, great, you've made something, you've made them move emotionally. Because the standard human emotion is complete indifference. That is, whether it sounds good or bad, that is the standard human emotion. Think when you walk down the street, people pass you all the time. And people will say to you, did you see that guy in the red coat that had the... No, where was he? Because you're indifferent. You don't notice people. No one notices people. We're indifferent to the rest of the world. So if you can write a story that breaks that indifference, that makes your audience go, oh, I'm moving away from indifference, I actually hate him now, you've done a good thing. You've triggered an emotion. If that's the emotion you want, outstanding. If it's not the emotion you want, rewrite until you get them to the emotion that you want. There is a wheel of emotions. So if someone's hating someone, just the same thing as the wheel of emotions. Again, sorry for the plug in the book. If a character is here and you want the character to get to, say, anger, at first they'll be surprised. Then they may go sad. Then they may go disgust, and then they'll go to anger. So you've got to take your audience on a similar sort of arc. You've got to sort of go, okay, where would they be now? They'd be upset with the situation. I want them to hate this person. So I'm going to get the person over there not to react the same way as the audience. I'm going to get him to contrast his behavior. So then he's not part of their cohort. He's not part of their tribe. Because humans are tribal, they'll suddenly want a distance from that character. And then if he does something that even reinforces how hateful he is, they will then hate him. If you want them to empathize, you can sort of say something and they'll be shocked, stunned by his actions, then show them something that they could relate to. They can now empathize with that character, which is a bit like the Joker. There's a bit of empathy there for him. You know, mentally ill, looking after a mum, no money, even the free therapy he's getting, they just don't care. Like when she says to him, have you had negative thoughts? And he looked at her completely stunned, like, have you never been in one of my therapy sessions? I've been seeing you for how long now? And he says, all I have is negative thoughts. People feel despair, like he's trying to get well, but no one's willing to help him. These are things you don't have to have likable characters, and it's okay for your characters to be hated. It's okay for them to be misogynists if they need to be misogynists in this story. I hope this has been a good week for you guys. If you could do the things, it'd be fantastic. I love the comments that people are giving us, the thumbs up and all that sort of stuff. And until next time, keep writing. Bye, guys.